As soon as Emma got off the plane, she spotted the man standing at the front of the crowd. He was dressed in a suit, wearing glasses, and holding a large bouquet of roses. The moment he saw her, he smiled and walked over, taking her suitcase with practiced ease.
Honey, you're back. You must be tired.
If Emma hadn't read Lily's letter beforehand, she might have believed this man was a loving husband and a good family man.
It's been so many days since I last saw you. Let's go home, darling.
Emma took the roses from Alex's hands and held his hand willingly. These were the very hands that had driven her sister to despair. She followed Alex home, and as soon as the door closed, the smile vanished from his face.
Emma, why did you smile at that man just now?
What are you talking about, honey? I don't know.
Don't pretend! Were you trying to flirt with him?
Alex wouldn't listen to her explanation. He slapped her across the face, the sting bringing tears to her eyes. Emma wondered if this was the life her sister had endured. A mere glance or expression at a passerby resulted in such violence.
What are you crying for? Are you planning to leave me? Is that it?
Another slap followed, making Emma see stars. She suddenly remembered how her sister had described Alex. Lily had spoken with such a bright and radiant smile, praising him in front of Emma.
Sis, I'm in love. He's such a wonderful person. He cooks for me, remembers my birthday and all my preferences. You don't need to worry about me. He's really good to me.
Emma's poor sister, who had never received their father's love, had placed all her trust in a seemingly decent man who had appeared in her life. But after they got married, she never heard her mention Alex again. If only Emma had asked more questions back then. If only she had noticed something was wrong sooner. Would Lily still be here with her now? Emma fell to the ground, and Alex kicked her in the stomach, causing tears to stream down her face.
You wretched woman! One man isn't enough for you, is it? You still want to seduce others. You wish! I'll beat you to death.
The pain made Emma's mind clearer. She finally understood what her sister had gone through. Alex didn't stop hitting her until he was out of breath and went back to the bedroom, leaving her alone in the living room. In the darkness, she could almost hear her sister's cries. When she closed her eyes, she saw Lily lying on the bed with her eyes tightly shut, surrounded by stains that couldn't be cleaned and wounds that couldn't heal. Emma saw Grace collapsing in grief over her, saw the deep cut on Lily's wrist that nearly severed her hand, and the letter on the desk. Every word in that letter was filled with her despair and her final plea for help. She lay on the floor, the intense pain preventing her from getting up. She could only touch the cold tiles beneath her with her fingers, wondering if they still held traces of her sister's blood. In countless dark nights, Lily had lain alone on the cold floor, utterly helpless. And where was Emma? In a foreign land, enjoying her youth and her life. Her sister had chosen to end her life after enduring such abuse. Emma didn't want to respond with violence, she wanted them to face the consequences they deserved. The pain sharpened my mind. Alex's anger had finally made me understand my sister's suffering. He only stopped hitting me when he was out of breath, retreating to the bedroom and leaving me in the dark living room.
How could this happen? I can't bear it.
In the darkness, I could almost hear my sister's cries, see her lying on the bed with her eyes tightly shut, surrounded by stains and unhealed wounds. I saw Grace collapsing in grief, saw the deep cut on Lily's wrist, and the letter on the desk. Every word in that letter was filled with her despair and final plea for help.
Dad. I got hurt by Alex yesterday and didn't have time to.
Despite everything, he was still our father, and I wanted to give him a chance. But he merely sneered.
Emma, you brought this on yourself. If Alex hit you, you must have done something wrong.
Our father, George, had no intention of protecting me. Instead, he grabbed my hair and slammed my face against the wall.
Dad, please.
I don't care if you got hurt or whatever yesterday. If I don't get my meal today, you'll regret it.
The stench of smoke and alcohol from George's mouth was nauseating, making me turn my head away.
I understand, Dad.
Only then did he release my hair, sprawling on the sofa without sparing me a glance.
Hurry up. If I go hungry, you'll pay for it.
I walked into the kitchen. Unfortunately, I wasn't like Lily. I didn't have her culinary skills. Over the years with Grace, I had hardly ever cooked.
If Lily had been here, she might have become an excellent artist. Sister, I've decided. I want to be an artist, she once told me.
That same Lily, when she decided to enter suffering, had the resolve to nearly sever her own hand, the hand she wanted to use for drawing. 10 minutes passed, and I was still clueless about the meat on the cutting board. George stormed in from the living room.
What is this? Why is the pot empty?
He kicked me in the back, and I nearly fell face first onto the knife. I threw myself to the side, landing awkwardly on the floor.
You worthless piece of trash. Are you trying to starve me?
I didn't. Dad, I really didn't.
Like hell you didn't. You're just like your useless mother.
Warm liquid trickled down my forehead. The metallic scent of blood filled my nostrils, reminiscent of that day in Lily's room. My vision began to blur. George picked up a piece of frozen pork belly and struck my head with it. The world spun around me, and I collapsed to the floor.
You piece of trash.
George's figure became increasingly blurry. He spat at me, cursed, and then turned away. I felt the blood streaming down my head and forced a smile. The living room was a battlefield, the air thick with tension and desperation.
You wish. I'll make sure you regret this.
The pain sharpened my thoughts. I finally understood what my sister had endured. Alex didn't stop until he was out of breath, retreating to the bedroom, leaving me alone. In the darkness, I could almost hear my sister's cries. When I closed my eyes, I saw her, surrounded by stains that couldn't be cleaned and wounds that couldn't heal. I saw Grace collapsing in grief, saw the deep cut on Lily's wrist, and the letter on the desk. Every word in that letter was filled with her despair and final plea for help. I lay on the floor, the intense pain preventing me from getting up. I could only touch the cold tiles beneath me, wondering if they still held traces of my sister's suffering. In countless dark nights, she had lain alone, utterly helpless. And where was I? In a foreign land, enjoying my youth and my life. My sister had chosen to end her life after enduring such torment. I didn't want to respond with violence. I wanted them to face the consequences they deserved.
What did the police say to you?
Oh, just asked a few questions.
Alex's face wore a smile, but his eyes hidden behind the glasses revealed no emotion. He reached out to tidy the stray hair by my ear.
Did my wife behave well?
I nodded numbly. Only then did he let me go and tucked the blanket around me. During my days in the hospital, Alex was incredibly attentive. The nurses all said I was lucky to have such a husband. He had such a perfect facade that it was hard to see the fangs hidden beneath. After I was discharged, Alex continued to be attentive for a few days but soon reverted to his true nature. He had countless reasons to hit me, sometimes because I talked to another man, sometimes because I didn't respond to him immediately, and sometimes because my clothing didn't meet his expectations. Any aspect of me that displeased him would result in a beating. Thinking about such a life, my sister endured it for 3 years, and my soul trembles. I waited for an opportunity, and a week later, Alex's boss arranged a business trip for him. He would be gone for 3 days. Before he left, Alex pressed my face against the mirror, his actions devoid of any gentleness, though his eyes were full of affection.
Emma, remember to behave during these 3 days.
His tone was tender, as if speaking sweet nothings, but I knew that behind this tender tone lay his poisonous claws. Naturally, I agreed repeatedly, avoiding another beating. The day after Alex left, I sent him a message on WeChat, asking if I could go to the mall. Alex didn't reply immediately, so I sent him a photo of my outfit and my unwashed hair. Only then did he grant my request. To prevent Alex from tracking Lily's phone, I used my phone bought abroad and logged into Lily's WeChat. After arriving at the mall, I stored Lily's phone in a locker. After doing all this, I went to an electronics store. I told the owner I suspected my husband of infidelity and bought a hidden camera. Lily's account had no money, but mine did. I am Sophie. After returning to the mall, I pretended to buy some household items before heading home. I didn't know to what extent Alex could go, so I decided to test the waters. I deliberately put on the sexy lingerie I bought at the mall and posed in front of the mirror. Sure enough, I soon received a message from Alex.
Honey, what did you buy at the mall today?
I looked at the woman in the mirror, her graceful figure, and the ugly scars on her fair skin.
Just some household items.
Anything else?
I also got you a little gift.
Alex didn't like me dressing too provocatively, so I knew that when he returned, another beating awaited me. But so what? Had my sister not endured enough beatings? After confirming the presence of surveillance at home, I began assembling my hidden camera. Soon, I came up with a plan. For a housewife, cleaning is the least suspicious activity. I gave the house a thorough cleaning and placed the camera behind the living room TV. Unexpectedly, instead of Alex, George showed up, reeking of alcohol, knocking on the door. As soon as I opened the door, he eagerly walked in.
Dad, what are you doing here?
I kept a safe distance from George. A drunk man showing up late at night, even if he was my father, felt dangerous. George slumped on the sofa, his beer belly almost obscuring his view. He reached out to me.
Emma, you've grown so much. Come here and let Dad have a look.
No good deed goes unpunished. I didn't move forward, even taking a step back.
Dad, what do you want?
My actions seemed to anger him. He cursed under his breath and grabbed my arm.
Damn it! I told you to come here. What are you dithering about?
George's strength was overwhelming. I couldn't break free and was thrown onto the sofa. His eyes roamed over me without restraint, as if I were not a person but a lamb to be slaughtered. I wasn't a naive teenager, I knew what his gaze meant. It was a man's greed for a woman, accompanied by a desire to destroy everything.
Dad! I'm your daughter!
I tried to dissuade him while moving backward. But George grabbed my ankle, his body heat wrapping around me like a venomous snake.
I'm your daughter! Your biological daughter!
So what? Didn't you flaunt yourself in that lingerie in front of the mirror? Better me than someone else.
Lingerie? I was stunned. Taking advantage of my shock, George dragged me under him. I never imagined he and Alex shared the surveillance footage. These two beasts. George's alcohol-laden breath made me almost vomit.
Dad will take good care of you, sweet girl, just this once, just this once.
He said, his other hand impatiently unbuckling his belt. His kisses, reeking of smoke and alcohol, fell on me. George's unwashed stench and his beer belly rubbed against me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a vase on the coffee table. Just as I was about to grab it and hit him, my phone started vibrating. Right, shared surveillance. Alex must be furious by now. I was curious to see what would happen when former allies turned into enemies. With this thought, I stopped my original plan and began to struggle half-heartedly.
Let go of me! Does Alex know what you're doing? Let go!
What does it matter if he knows? Can he kill me?
Damn it, if you keep struggling, I'll destroy you. George slapped me twice, making me see stars.
George! Damn you!
The other main character had arrived. The memory of Alex's threats echoed in Emma's mind. The pain cleared her thoughts, and she finally understood her sister's suffering. Alex didn't stop hitting her until he was out of breath, leaving her alone in the dark living room.
I can almost hear my sister's cries.
Closing her eyes, Emma saw her sister lying on the bed, surrounded by stains and unhealed wounds. She saw Grace collapsing in despair, saw the deep cut on Lily's wrist, and the letter on the desk, each word filled with despair and a final plea for help.
Lily, I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you.
Emma lay on the floor, the pain preventing her from getting up. She touched the cold tiles, wondering if they still held traces of her sister's suffering. In countless dark nights, Lily had lain there, utterly helpless.
And where was I? Enjoying my youth in a foreign land.
When I arrived, George was hooked up to various tubes. The caregiver was cleaning his body.
Why do I have to take care of this old man?
She looked embarrassed when she saw me.
Why don't you take a break and grab something to eat?
All right.
George lay on the bed, his eyes glaring at me with fierce intensity, making incomprehensible sounds from his throat. I sat on the chair beside him and tucked in his blanket.
Dad, who would have thought you'd end up bedridden and helpless?
His eyes bore into me, and if looks could kill, I would have been torn to pieces.
Dad, do you still recognize me? 16 years have passed. You probably don't remember me, do you?
His eyes first showed confusion, then fear. His incomprehensible sounds grew louder, his body convulsing, and the heart rate monitor beside him began to spike.
Are you scared, Dad? Why would you be scared? Were you scared when you hurt my sister?
I smiled and gently touched his face. He tried to recoil from my touch, but couldn't move an inch.
When I was little, you always yelled at us after drinking. I thought you fought so hard for custody of my sister after the divorce because you would take good care of her. But it turns out, you just wanted to exploit her for all she was worth.
Lily, gentle by nature, would always clean up the mess when I got angry at George for drinking. Such a considerate and obedient girl, yet she met her end at the hands of George and Alex.
Dad, did you know? Lily is gone. She drained all the blood from her body, died cold, and left me a letter filled with hatred for you. Do you think there are spirits in this world? If there are, Lily must be very happy to see you like this.
I had never spoken to him so gently before, but George reacted as if he had heard the most venomous words in the world, his pupils contracting in fear.
Enjoy it, Dad. You won't leave this world easily.
I walked out of the room, ignoring his desperate struggles on the bed, and ran into Alex. He saw me, and a shadow of malice flickered in his eyes. I greeted him with a smile, as if I hadn't noticed.
Next, it should be your turn, shouldn't it?
Narrator, tone, serious. The pain made my mind clearer. I finally understood what my sister had gone through. Alex didn't stop hitting me until he was out of breath, then went back to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room. In the darkness, I could almost hear my sister's cries. When I closed my eyes, I saw her lying on the bed with her eyes tightly shut, surrounded by stains that couldn't be cleaned and wounds that couldn't heal.
Grace, why didn't you tell me sooner?
I saw Grace collapsing in grief over her, saw the deep cut on Lily's wrist that nearly severed her hand, and the letter on the desk. Every word in that letter was filled with her despair and her final plea for help.
I'm so sorry, Lily. I should have been there for you.
I lay on the floor, the intense pain preventing me from getting up. I could only touch the cold tiles beneath me with my fingers, wondering if they still held traces of my sister's blood. In countless dark nights, she had lain alone on the cold floor, utterly helpless. And where was I? In a foreign land, enjoying my youth and my life.
I promise, Lily, I'll make them pay.
Alex's voice echoed through the room, filled with rage.
You wish. I'll beat you to death.
The pain made my mind clearer. I finally understood what my sister had gone through. Alex didn't stop hitting me until he was out of breath and went back to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room. In the darkness, I could almost hear my sister's cries. When I closed my eyes, I saw her lying on the bed with her eyes tightly shut, surrounded by stains that couldn't be cleaned and wounds that couldn't heal. I saw Grace collapsing in grief over her, saw the deep cut on Lily's wrist that nearly severed her hand, and the letter on the desk. Every word in that letter was filled with her despair and her final plea for help. I lay on the floor, the intense pain preventing me from getting up. I could only touch the cold tiles beneath me with my fingers, wondering if they still held traces of my sister's blood. In countless dark nights, she had lain alone on the cold floor, utterly helpless. And where was I? In a foreign land, enjoying my youth and my life. My sister had chosen to end her life after enduring such abuse. I didn't want to respond with violence, I wanted them to face the consequences they deserved.